Hello guys, my name is Noble Knight Bedouin. Welcome to my channel, and today we're gonna do the cross-eyed challenge. Let's go!
What is up, epic gamers? I have a Noble Knight deck that I occasionally use. It's another one of my favorite decks, basically because there are a lot of beautiful foil cards in it, like secret rares, ultimate rares, super rares. It's maybe not the best deck ever, but it's one of the most beautiful decks ever. So let's get right into it. So to start this deck off, we have 3 copies of Noble Knight Madrot. This is the main card in the deck. It's the main combo starter, so you definitely want to run 3. If you equip a Noble Arms spell card to this guy, he does become a dark monster and increases its level by 1, but the most important part is that if he is the only monster you control, you can special summon another Noble Knight monster from your deck. You can't run less than 3, you need this guy. Then we have 3 Noble Knight brothers. He can, when normal summoned, you can special summon up to 2 Noble Knights from your hand. But the best effect with this card is that you can return 3 Noble Knight and or Noble Arms cards from your graveyard to your deck and then draw a card. So it's like a small pot of avarice for Noble Knight cards. Then the last one of the big 3, as I like to call it, Noble Knight's Kustenin. It's one of the new Noble Knight monsters. And this guy can special summon himself from your hand if you control a Noble Arms card, which isn't that hard to do. Another really cool effect is that if he is used for a Link summon, XC summon, or Synchro summon of a Noble Knight monster, you can get an additional normal summoner set for a Noble Knights monster, which is also really good and will make going into your main plays easier. And then I run 2 of Noble Knight Ivan. He's actually really good. First, I kind of underestimated him, but he's a really great target for Madrot, which I'll show in a moment with a little combo. Noble Arms spell card gets equipped to him. You will get a free token that you can use for Link summoning into your Isolde, of course, which we'll get through in the extra deck. Then there is 1 free slot, as I like to call it. At the moment I'm running Dristan in it because Dristan is nice and easy spot removal. If he gets equipped with a Noble Arms card, you can target 1 face-up card on the field, destroy it. So I like to switch it up every now and again. Sometimes I run Gvolchevad or Eactor, but at the moment I'm running Dristan. Now we only run 1 Noble Knight Boars. At first I ran him at 2 or 3, but he isn't really that useful anymore. Most of the time when I have him in my hand, I don't even really know what to do with him. But he is a nice variation of Pot of Duality, as he can reveal 3 Noble Arms cards from your deck, then your opponent chooses 1. Add it to your hand, and the rest is sent to the graveyard. Then I run 2 Merlin, another card I downgraded. At first I ran him at 3, but he is an awesome way to get your Madrot out if you haven't drawn him. So he's basically a Lone Fire Blossom for Noble Knights. When you summon him, you can tribute him, special a Noble Knight from your deck, and if he's in your graveyard, as a quick effect, you can banish him, and then you can XC or Synchro summon during your opponent's turn. A little heads up, we're only using XC and Link monsters, we're not using the Synchro monster, but if you ever want to use a Synchro monster, you can Synchro summon during your opponent's turn, no problem. Then we have another one-off. We have Gwenevere, Queen of Noble Arms. Basically another equip spell in the form of a monster to get your Madrot effects off, or your Ivan effect, or your Boars effect, whatever effect you want. Then I run 4 hand traps. I run a Ghost Bell, an Ash Blossom, 2 Veilers. Like always with my decks, the hand traps are basically personal preference. I really like using Ash Blossom because that's probably the best hand trap at the moment. Ghost Spell is against the graveyard effects, and Effect Veiler is to negate effects on your opponent's side of the field which can get in your way. So those were the monster cards. Now we'll go into the spell cards, and if you know a little bit about Noble Knights, you know that these spell cards are a pretty big part of the deck. First off, we get 3 of one of the new cards, which is Heritage of the Chalice. It's a search card for either a Noble Knight or a Noble Arms card. And if a Noble Knight equipped with Noble Arms gets destroyed by battle, after you use this card and it's in your graveyard, you can return this card to your hand and activate it next turn. So this is probably one of the best spell cards in the deck. Really important because you want to get to your key Noble Knight cards as soon as possible, or to your swords. Then I run 2 Glory of the Noble Knights. This is an awesome card if you open up without any of the swords in your hand. So you can target one Noble Knight monster you control and equip a sword directly from your deck to it, which is awesome. It's kind of debatable if you want to run it at 2 or just at 1. I've seen some deck lists which just run it at 1, some deck lists that run it at 3. So I'm kind of experimenting with just running it at 2 at the moment. And then I run 1 copy of Last Chapter of the Noble Knights, which is a revival spell card. When your opponent controls a monster and you have nothing, you can both revive a Noble Knight from your graveyard and equip it with a sword from your graveyard. You don't really see this card being ran that much anymore, but in my test duels and opening hands that I tried out, it can come up quite some times, so I like to run it at 1. Then we go into the swords. Most of the swords, except for Excalibur, have a return effect, so if they get destroyed once per turn, you can re-equip them from your graveyard. So we have Caliburn, which gives a monster 500 attack and lets you gain 500 life points once per turn. We have Noble Arms of Destiny, which can prevent your monster from destruction once per turn, either by battle or a card effect. Then we have Noble Arms Arfedutir, which can destroy set cards on your opponent's field, but the monster it's equipped to loses 500 attack permanently. We'll save this for last because it has a different kind of effect. We have Gallatin, which lets the monster gain 1000 attack, but lose 200 attack during each of your standby phases. Then we have the newest addition to the Noble Arms cards. We have Clarence, and it lets your Noble Knight monster it's equipped to, at the cost of 500 life points, it lets it attack your opponent directly. It's not like a super busted card, but you need just enough Noble Arms cards to use for Isolde's effect and to equip to the Noble Knight XC monster. So that's a little hint if you want to build Noble Knights yourself. Don't use too many of the swords, just whatever is necessary. Then we have Noble Arms Excalibur, which makes the equipped monster unable to be targeted by your opponent's effects. One of the more important effects of this card is that this is the only sword that doesn't re-equip on destruction. So if you use this sword on your Madrot to special summon a monster from your deck, this doesn't re-equip, so keep that in mind. What it does do is that you can banish it from your graveyard, except during the turn that it's sent there, and you can basically rank up your King Custenin or King Artorigus into the rank 5 XC monster, which we'll go to when we get to the extra deck. Noble Knights is a warrior deck, so of course we run reinforcements of the army. Then we run a Monster Reborn for the basic monster revival. We run 2 Called by the Graves. So this is basically a staple for decks like this with a lot of search power and consistency. You don't want your searches to be interrupted. So if I could run 3, I ran 3, but the space in this deck is also kind of tight. So if you are able to fit in a 3rd Called by the Grave, definitely go for it. Then we run one of the best spell cards in the game, Twin Twister. just a great card. Discard one card, then target up to 2 spell and trap cards on the field and destroy them. Easy as that. Then last but not least, we have a trap card which we run at 2. It's probably the card with the longest name. Until noble arms are needed once again. Basically, this lets you excavate cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of noble arms equipped spells you have, and then you can add one of those excavated cards to your hand and return the other two to the top of your deck in any order. And it also has a graveyard effect. You can banish it from your graveyard, except during the turn it was sent there, and it'll special summon a Noble Knight monster from your deck with a different name from the monsters that you already control or are in the graveyard. It is a trap card, so it is kind of slow, but it's definitely worth running in this deck. So yeah, that was the main deck for Noble Knights. Let's get to the extra deck, which is where all the boss monsters reside. So the extra deck for Noble Knights is pretty straightforward. You run 3 of Artorigus, King of the Noble Knights. This card requires 2 level 4 Noble Knight monsters, so with cards like Madrot, that's super easy to do. And when it's XC summoned, you can target up to 3 Noble Arms in your graveyard, equip them to this guy, and you can also detach an XC material from this card to destroy as many spell and trap cards on the field equal to the number of Noble Arm cards you control. Then we also use 3 of the rank 5 cards, which you can summon with Excalibur. So this guy also has the re-equip effect. So when he's XC summoned, you can re-equip up to 3 Noble Arms from your graveyard to this guy. By detaching 1 XC material from this card, you can destroy 1 other monster on the field. And last but not least, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 or higher Noble Knight monster from your graveyard. Then we run 2 of the newer Noble Knight XCs. We have Sacred Noble Knight of King Custenin. You can detach any number of XC material from this card and then return that many cards your opponent controls and return them to his or her hand. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by a card effect, you can special summon 1 Noble Knight XC monster from your extra deck, which is amazing. Then we have one of the most amazing cards in the deck, Isolde. So this is probably the first card you want to go into before you summon the XC monsters. Isolde, upon being link summoned, lets you add 1 warrior from your deck to your hand, but you can't do anything with that monster during the turn you use this effect. But you can also send equip spell cards from your deck to your graveyard and then summon a warrior monster from your deck with a level equal to the number of equip cards sent. So you basically want to summon Isolde, add a Noble Knight from your deck to your hand that you don't need at the moment, and then send 4 equip spells to the grave and summon a Noble Knight you need, like Ivan, like Brothers. Mostly I add Boars and then summon either Custenin, Ivan or Brothers with her effect. Then for the generic cards, I run 1 Abyss Dweller. Graveyard effects are pretty prominent, like with Orcust and all that jazz. Borlow Dragon, sometimes you can actually get quite a few monsters on the field to use for Borlow Dragon, but it doesn't really come up that much, but I like to run him just in case. And then the last 2 monsters in this extra deck are just the standard Nightmare Cerberus and Nightmare Phoenix. These are some amazing cards. Spell and trap removal, monster removal, and you can get out 2 monsters pretty easily in this deck. So that was the extra deck for Noble Knights, and I actually want to go ahead and show you one of the most used combos in this deck. So here is one of the most standard combos you want to get off in this deck. It basically just involves 2 cards, Noble Knight Madrot and 1 of the equip spells. It doesn't really matter which one, but the combo is best when you use one of the Noble Arms that can re-equip from the grave. So let's go ahead. So what you want to do in this deck on your first turn is get a Noble Knight Madrot out. And of course there's lots of cards that can search Noble Knight Madrot if you don't draw him, like Merlin, Heritage of the Chalice, Then you equip him with one of the Noble Arms cards. Then you activate his effect and summon a Noble Knight from your deck. Let's say we summon Noble Knight Ivan. Then, because of Noble Knight Madrod's effect, the Noble Arms gets destroyed. But when a Noble Knight Arms card gets destroyed, it re-equips from the graveyard to another Noble Knight. So in this case, we equip it to Ivan. So Ivan's effect says that if a Noble Arms card gets equipped to him, you can special summon a Noble Knight token. So after you summon the token from Noble Knight Ivan's effect, we can send 2 of these cards to the graveyard. Because we're going to link summon, we're going to get rid of the token. Awesome custom token, by the way, but I digress. So we'll send, it doesn't really matter, but I guess we'll send Ivan to the graveyard. So we'll link summon into Isolde. Then we activate Isolde's effect, which lets us add a warrior from our deck to our hand. Keep in mind that this warrior that you add now can be used during this turn at all. So pick a Noble Knight that might be handy during your next turn. In this example, let's go for Tristan. We'll put him here, that's our hand in this case. Then we activate Isolde's second effect. So we'll send 4 Noble Arms cards with different names from our deck to the graveyard. And we'll summon a level 4 Noble Knight monster. Let's go for Noble Knight Brothers. So with Madrod and Brothers, we'll overlay those to make Artorigus. Artorigus, let's move our hand a bit to the left. Artorigus lets him equip cards from your graveyard to him, up to 3. So we'll do, in this example, we'll do Caliburn, Destiny, and Aphrodite. And this is basically one of the standard combos you want to do. When it only takes you a Madrod and an equip spell. Of course, I'm not saying that this is the ultimate combo. This is the tier 0 Noble Knight experience. But this is basically one of the things that the deck does best. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile of my Noble Knights deck. If you have any tips or tricks with Noble Knights, let me know. I'm always looking for improvement in this deck. The only downside is that, you know, it's Noble Knights, it's easily interrupted. So be sure to let me know what you think of this deck. Like and subscribe, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. See you guys then. Goodbye.